So, Nathan, I think that this little story that I have to tell kind of fits nicely with the conversation that we were just having, because it comes back to how we look at the world, before we even enter into the world and leave the safety of our home, and then also, for me at least, what we're telling ourselves, what messages I give myself in a subtle way, and am I letting my inner voice, my inner critic, run the show? So for the last couple of weeks, yep.
This you're talking about. You got an infected finger, and ended up. I think you waited for a while, and some people do, and then myself and a few other people were trying to get you to go in, and eventually you did. Understandable reluctance, but yeah. So
I had a raging infection in my left index finger, and I'm left-handed, so it's pretty important when you suddenly can't use your index finger at all. And I don't have a family doctor. I actually just got a family doctor, but up until last week, I didn't have one.
Who are
and
you?
So and it became obvious to me that I was going to need a prescription. And yeah, you and other people in my life were kind of just gently nudging me along in that direction, and couldn't get into a walk-in because walk-ins are nearly impossible to get into nowadays, especially if you work a normal job. So do I go to the ER? And that was my workplace for most of my career, and the ER in my community was my workplace for the last 5 years of my career, say. So do I do that? And after you had given me this last nudge to get some Keflex into my system to treat this infection, I was kind of weighing it out. And what I realized was that all of the messages I was giving myself that said, no, just wait, give it another day, they were just below the surface of those messages that were keeping me from getting a prescription, were rooted in negative self-talk, that I'd be walking into a hornet's nest by returning to my former place of work, that people wouldn't accept me, that people would judge me, that going in there would be terrifying and anxiety producing and make me feel unsafe, or maybe it would even make me feel an urge. I didn't know how it was going to feel. I've never walked back in there since before I was taken off of work.
Did you feel like you didn't deserve to? Was there some of that kind of?
I think there was, like, just downplaying it. And I'm sensible enough and know my emergency medicine enough to know that finger needed to be looked at. But what I was saying was like, oh no, it's fine. Give it a couple of days. It'll go away. And really, it's not a big deal. But beneath that, it's like, if I was really holding myself up and saying like, no, I deserve to have this looked at. It's important for me to have this looked at. That was kind of negative self-talk, masquerading as like just being kind of casual or flippant about what was going on.
You're being a tough guy.
Or being a tough guy, or just being like a pragmatic nurse who's like, oh no, I don't want to go and, tax the already taxed system. But what was beneath it was all kind of like self-doubting, negative messaging. So to actually support myself and like we just talked about, to like turn that compassion towards myself, to turn it inwards, it's like, and to dispute those irrational beliefs, because those are irrational beliefs that I was telling myself. And to say, no, I deserve to have a doctor look at my finger. I deserve to get a prescription. I deserve to not be judged. So if I'm judged or mistreated by former coworkers, that's on them. That's not on me, because I deserve to have medical attention in this moment.
Yeah, you certainly don't deserve to lose a finger.
No. and of course, once I go in there, it is very different from the reality that my inner voice was telling me. It didn't feel as scary as I like disputed some of those irrational beliefs. The people were like not only friendly, but in some cases happy to see me, and like big waves, and hey, like, oh my God, we haven't seen you in ages. Where did you go? Where did you go? So they don't even know what my story is. They were just happy to see me. And yeah, come on in. And they got me in, and I saw a doctor within 20 minutes and left, and my finger is better. But just like, this is a challenge that we talk about in meetings, and we talk about, reintegrating into the workplace and how to go back into your workplace. My circumstance is a little bit different because I'm not working in the same workplace or even in the same line of work. But that's such a big challenge for all of us to face that.
It is.
And for me, in that moment, what I realized was that inner critic of mine was willing to sacrifice my health and well-being to like act like he was protecting me, or to hold up this front, kind of a thing. So a very interesting little moment of a lesson there, for sure.
Well, it's a great example of true irrational belief.
Yeah.
You are a healthcare professional who's probably treated multiple patients with a near identical wound.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know what happens if you don't treat it.
Yeah.
And here you are trying to convince yourself, and successfully for quite a while, convincing yourself that you were doing the right thing by not going in, because it was easier than, facing the reality that you had built inside your mind, which is, I see that quite often in people who are early along in the process. And I think not only the effects of withdrawal from whatever substance they were on, but that period of time where you're kind of in limbo and all you have to do is think about what's going on in your life. And depending on your tendency towards a positive or negative outlook, you're going to build a story. You're going to start fortune telling,
Yes.
And yeah, it can get bad. I was shocked by how different reality was from the version of reality that I thought was going to happen. As far as, how people reacted to my situation, I had it tagged as a catastrophe in my mind. Like I thought, basically the worst was going to happen, and it was nothing like that.
No,
and I was definitely lucky, because I know it's not like that for everybody, but and I had lots of support, which is awesome. But yeah, I don't think it's like for people like us who tend towards this kind of thinking. Yeah, it's and how do you temper that? I mean, you're aware of this, right?
I think about it a lot, and it just got me thinking just now about anxiety, and that anxiety is certainly a very real physiological and mental phenomenon that occurs. And I think part of why it occurs is also to keep us safe, like, in terms of in an evolutionary way, to keep us safe. But that inner voice can cue that anxiety up on demand in some cases. And if the anxiety is being driven by an irrational belief coming from that inner voice, then how do we temper that? How do we challenge it? I think going back to our conversation about self-supporting messages, about self-loving messages, and about disputing that and saying, is this true right now?
Yeah, says who?
Says who?
Yeah.
And so to challenge it, to dispute it, and then also to actively say, I deserve to have medical care. I deserve to walk into that ER. I live in this city. I'm a homeowner. I pay taxes. Even if I wasn't a homeowner and paid taxes, I would still deserve it. But everything that I rationally know about myself tells me that I deserve this right now. And the things that are telling me that I don't deserve it are not rational.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's like a runaway improperly attenuated mechanism that for some reason is involved in, it's a protection mechanism at its root, but now you're in a totally different environment than the one it was in, your ancestors were in when that was a more important system. And I guess it's got to do something with that energy, right? So if you're not paying attention to it and challenging those thoughts, then it's just going to sit there and generate more kind of dark mayhem.
Yeah.
The brain is I don't know, man. It's beyond comprehension.
Yeah.
And all these different layers of awareness, and it's something.
It's fascinating. And then tying it into what you were just saying, Nathan, about our view of the outside world, that was certainly also a tape that was playing, was that like all of these people are going to be judgmental and rude or callous towards me or whatever, like telling myself all these little things that they were going to be like. And I think that was certainly my own way of trying to keep myself safe, emotionally safe, at the cost of physically.
Yeah, a big cost.
And really, again, these people are just doing their jobs. I know the people that work there well enough to know that they're compassionate and kind and would do anything that anyone coming into the ER would need to help them feel better. So why would it be any different?
Well, it must have been pretty therapeutic for you to go through that situation and just, go in and be treated like a regular patient, and to actually have people, happy to see you, which I would imagine. I mean, I like working with you in all these projects we do. I imagine you're a great guy to work with in the hospital. So there's probably, when you left, I mean, regardless of what people know, and even if they do, I guarantee you there'd be lots of people who are like, God damn it, I wish Corey was still here.
Yeah. Yeah, I probably so. So a good lesson. And sometimes it takes something like that to sort of like thrust us forward into the next stage of healing or of, I say therapy in like the broader sense of like immersion. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Getting immersed in real life, and like then realizing that it's not as bad as the picture that we can paint for ourselves.